What is up, Extra Butter listeners? On today's episode, we dive into a newer movie, Top Gun Maverick, a 2022 film that we categorized in the action category. Chat about that a little bit. It's also March in full swing. College basketball's got some of us by the neck as we're in the conference tournaments. And we had a guy on the pod turn 30. Let's get into it.
On the cone for me, extra butter. I hope they don't charge a fee, but it won't matter anyway. I got a good movie to play. I'm gonna ask my friends to stay extra butter for me.
Welcome back to Extra Butter, where three guys with zero credentials pick one movie at a time. Extra Butter is the podcast where we pick a movie, watch it, and then proceed to unpack it with unqualified opinions, questionable takes, and just enough passion to almost sound like we know what we're talking about. No film is safe. Coming to classics, cult classics, or total flops, we watch them all, so you don't have to, but you totally should. Lower your expectations, grab some popcorn, and make sure to add some extra butter. This is episode 3 of your favorite movie review podcast, and fellas, we had a birthday.
We did. The Dirty 30.
The Dirty 30. We're getting old. We've said it 3 times now, and we just happen to have a guy turn 30. Went to the Avs game on Monday. Geese, how's 30 feel?
Honestly, it was just another day. I feel like once you get past 25, it's just another day, and then people just attribute 30 because it's an even number. I still feel I feel like after 26, I just stopped keeping track. But I did have to get a new license because it expired, so I'm waiting for that.
Is that typical? Is 30 like a typical age? I don't actually know when
I have
your
to do
license
mine.
expires.
I have to do mine this year, and I'm turning 29, so I think it just depends. Depends on when you get them. They only last how long.
I got a new license when I moved out to Colorado, and I think that reset it. And then, so yeah, it just coincided with turning 30, I think. I'm not exactly sure. But
you also said 25, like after 25 you stopped keeping track, and then you said 26. Is there something at 25 that I'm forgetting? That is there something important about 25 or 26?
26 is your own insurance.
That's true. Yeah.
That's the
25, you can
cutoff.
drive a rental car too.
Yeah. So
That's
I feel
what
like
I thought too.
I guess I should rephrase and say maybe 26 is when you kind of stop keeping track. I just felt like 25 is midway between 20 and 30, and
Well, I mean, the next real one is retirement. I mean, once you get to 60, 62, like, what else in between there really matters?
I was thinking 21 was the last one that I really cared about. I mean, 25, yeah, is important because you just pay for more shit, but 21's like the last fun one. And then I am in the same boat of we really only care or celebrate, or the only parties you really get invited to are when people hit like the 0. So 30, 40, I mean the 5s kind of, but 30, 40, 50, 60, and so on. That is the only parties you ever really see after you turn 21.
50's gotta hurt.
yeah,
You're
50 feels like
They
half
all
a
hurt.
century-old. Yeah.
50 feels like where that is over the hill. If
Well,
that's the one.
40 is technically the over the hill birthday,
Is
right?
it 40?
Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's 40. Like the birthday cards over the hill, I'm pretty sure it's 40.
Yeah, because you don't typically live to 100. It seems like 80's the long one. You're halfway through at 40.
So
That's true. I
Well, I
never
mean, I'll
really
take
thought
that.
about what over the hill meant. The
Right.
halfway point, like you're just on your downslope of life. Yeah, over the hill. I mean, you're at the top, so the rest is downhill. Makes sense.
what does Dr. Disrespect say? We're at
At the
the
top of the mountain, we're only halfway there.
That's what it feels
Avs
like.
Coming up, though.
that Avs game on Monday though was electric. That was my first pro hockey game. Played the Blackhawks, obviously supporting your team through the jersey on. Thought we had a fighting chance. Put a bet in. 0-0 through 2 periods, and then they just got shit pumped and lost 3-0.
And that's how hockey goes, really. I mean, to hold them off for 2 periods, and that goalie, I don't remember his name, but those were some lights out save.
He was standing on his head, and that guy in front of us that was a diehard Denver fan told us he was the backup, so that just shoved the knife right in the back too.
Oh, that hurt. That hurt.
Trav, this guy also, this diehard Denver guy in front of us, was watching the Nuggets game on his phone against the Thunder while at the Avs game, watching the Avs play the Hawks.
Love that. I'm that type of guy.
Absolute legend in terms of just a Denver sports fan. Because out here, I don't think that the fans are as diehard as other cities. I know that they kind of jump on when the teams are good, which why wouldn't you?
You know what's crazy? People from Minnesota are diehard Denver too. Yeah, there's a lot of Minnesota people are big Denver people. Like, if I had to pick one team or one city that people from Minnesota cheer for, it's Denver. There's like a lot of my dad's friends. Either they'll go out to Denver. I think it had to be like ski culture where they liked Colorado and they go out there. But yeah, big Denver fans.
Yeah, I think that has to do with the skiing or the baby hills that you get in Minnesota and Wisconsin that you can ski on in like Iowa. So then you come out to Denver for the real deal. Totally different.
And a little off topic, not even whatever. It's the history of Minnesota sports. I mean, we didn't really have a basketball team, and then we had the North Stars, and they sold to the Dallas team. So I'm sure a lot of people jumped ship then.
Yeah, that's true. But no, pro hockey game was a lot of fun.
I'm gonna kind of disagree with you there, Brendan. I feel like Denver fans are always at the home games. I mean, they might not travel well, but I feel like the attitude of them is pretty solid. I mean, they fill out stadiums constantly at home.
I had fun at the Rockies game, but they were terrible.
Yeah, the Rockies games definitely don't fill out, but they're terrible, as you said.
And the stadium's sick, though.
Stadium's sick. You can get in cheap, so it is fun, but I would say that they definitely don't sell out. The Avs have been good since we've lived here, so I think that definitely has something to do with it. But it is definitely a Broncos city. I think the Broncos are definitely number one. I went to a preseason game this year, sold out. I mean, it was pretty fun, but they did show out. But I do think the Broncos are the team. I think the Nuggets have, obviously with the success that they've had, have taken a pretty big swing. But I do think if you boil down to asking locals or born and raised who Denver's team is, it's the Broncos.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. But also kind of in the sports category, March basketball is the closest thing for me. I'm a diehard NFL guy. I don't know you guys if have paid any attention to it, but college basketball, when you have tip-off at 9 a.m. and you have tip-off at 9:30 p.m. and there's games on all day, as a sports fan, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that. No. I think NFL is king. NFL is always going to be king for me. But when you get into conference tournaments, Selection Sunday coming up, and then the tournament starting next week, there's not much of a better time for sports than March.
I've got an idea, gentlemen.
What's up?
Let's get a little bracket challenge.
We're going to have to.
I definitely do that. That's the only time I watch college basketball is March Madness, and it's been that way for about a decade.
And I used to in high school. Well, you get yourself believing that you know more than you do too. It's like it's almost like the World Cup. You know, no one watches soccer as much. Like the average sports fan, I feel like in America there's so many big sports here. But when the World Cup comes around, everybody's all in on soccer. Kind of like if the USA plays in a sport, everybody's throwing the red, white, and blue on. March Madness kind of has the same effect. I didn't really pay attention to the season, but you jump in conference tournament time and March Madness tournament. And you just think you know everything just by reading a couple stats or looking at some game logs, and you're like, you think you got the sleepers, you think you know the favorites. There's a lot of
prediction, Brennan.
What's that?
I think somebody's gonna fill out a perfect bracket this year in the world.
It's gonna be me.
I think it's gonna happen.
What are the odds on that? It's less
like
likely than winning the lottery.
Zillion. Yeah, I'll look it up.
Don't you win a shit ton of money if you do that?
I think they do It's $1 million challenge. I think it's $1 million.
What do you think your take home is after all that? 600?
Like here you go, the odds.
50. Yeah.
1 in 120.2 billion.
Oh.
Yeah, and what's the lottery? The lottery's less than that, I'm pretty sure. It's like more likely to hit the lotto.
Yeah, it's like 1 in the population, I think it is. Like 1 in 300 million.
Now, can I
Yeah.
place a bet at those odds that someone will get a perfect bracket this year? Because I'd put 5 on that, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Every
sure.
year if you could.
Perfect bracket odds. Yeah, 120.
I don't think you can bet on that, but you should be able to. Will somebody? I mean, that would be stealing as a sports book if you put that bet out there. But the one time you lose,
Oh.
you're bankrupt. So it would, yeah, it would not be a good business move if it once it happens. But another thing that's funny about it is, like last night, I'm watching Utah Valley play Seattle University. Like you don't get that in professional sports, and I know there's a gambling factor to it, but it's also just the college hoops, the culture, and just the student sections. The stadiums are always packed. But yeah, you've got the Blue Bloods. You can watch Duke, North Carolina. They played this week. But you don't get in professional sports watching teams like that. This morning, watching Yale and Princeton go to war, and it being a 2-point game and just back and forth, and you're diving into these colleges and these teams that you would never pay attention to outside of March.
Yeah, I'm excited. I remember high school playing basketball and then hopping in and watching everybody's bracket and checking your percentile and like, oh yeah, I got a better bracket. And all the teachers would get in. We'd be watching games on our phone during class.
And then it's one chick that doesn't pay attention to any of that wins because she picked it based off mascots.
Yeah,
Scotch,
maybe that's what we
team
got to do.
colors. Yeah, I do think that next week, since Selection Sunday will be this weekend, after the Big Ten tournament wraps up, it's always last. Selection Sunday will happen, and the next week we can talk about who we've got winning it. So we'll have to make sure to fill out a bracket to be able to dive in and see who everybody's got going to the Final Four and winning the whole thing.
For sure.
Another note on that too, before moving on, is to your point, Trav, in school, the teachers that had the TVs were like, hey, this is an easy week for me to just throw some games on. Absolute best teachers.
Coach teachers for sure.
Every time.
Would do that. And then I had an English teacher that you had no idea that she was a big college basketball fan. She's like, yeah, we're throwing it on. Can you read today?
No, it's a free for all. It's an easy way to just not lesson plan and just let's watch some hoops.
And everyone understands too.
Yeah. Even people that don't get it, like you can still appreciate the fact like we're not doing any work today. We're watching hoops.
It's madness,
Yep, it is. I mean, there's what? I mean, I don't even know. The first couple days is 32 games on, 16 a day, right? It would be 6. Yeah, it's not a better time in the world than March Madness when it comes to sports. But anyway, guys, moving into Top Gun Maverick 2022 action film. We've kind of progressed our way through the decades, started in 1995, fast forward about 20 years to 2012 last week, and now catching up to 2022 with a newer movie. Top Gun Maverick, we put it in the action category. So within the identification that we've got in the categories that we have, Top Gun Maverick easily slotted into the action part of our organization. But thought it was cool that we've been able to kind of progress through the years and getting caught up to speed now today. Trav, tell them a little bit about the movie.
We have the sequel to the 1980s Top Gun, where we have a reintroduction of Tom Cruise's character Maverick. He's a semi-retired pilot now running test missions for the government when he gets saved from being fired to then being called up to teach the Top Gun students how to perform and execute high-risk, high-reward mission. Along the way, we get the drama and ego checking that goes along with military crews and missions at the highest level. Geese, I want your initial thoughts on the movie.
Trav, watching this movie, I really thought that the typical criticisms I have been bringing up, like during these podcasts, I didn't have that going into this. I just wanted to see planes. I want to see action. I want to see Tom Cruise being Maverick. And it really delivered on that. I understand that if you watch the original movie, this one won't live up to that. But it's airplanes, dogfights, and then a little drama and a little love. And I feel like everyone can get behind that.
Yeah, I think the fact that you haven't watched it, Brendan, it doesn't ruin the coolness factor or the story of the whole movie, which is good. And I think that's why it got a lot of really good reviews. You can kind of guess what happened and they kind of explain it. how whatever happened in the first movie affects the relationship with these guys in this movie. But the story of it, with the mission that they got to do, how they do it, and the fact that he's got to teach them and be involved is just full circle for his character line.
Yeah, brother. Oh my God, this movie was awesome. I haven't seen the old one. Obviously, you said that, and I hadn't seen this one either. So this is the first time I've seen this movie. I was at a loss for words multiple times. The movie was unbelievable. I kind of had thoughts going into it that I wasn't a Tom Cruise guy. I don't know why. I just mentally kind of went into it thinking, I don't think I've ever really been a huge Tom Cruise guy. I don't think that's necessarily true, and it definitely didn't stand true in this movie. That was unbelievable. I literally don't have any other words. I know we'll get into the movie itself, but absolutely electric. Oh, that was bad. Absolutely electric. The whole story. I mean, yeah, I think I agree with what you said about you can kind of pick up on what happened in the old movie. I think obviously this makes me want to go watch it. I've heard of Goose. I've heard of a lot of the characters and some of the storylines of that movie, but I had never actually seen it. I think it did a good job of kind of getting you caught up to speed on those relationships and why some of those things were the way that they were. There was obviously a lot that I didn't kind of get. The relationship he had with the woman at the bar. I'm blanking on her name. Penny. Yeah, the relationship he had with Penny. Seeing some of the things that happened with her and Tom's character there, Pete. But overall, dude, unbelievable. It literally left me speechless. I don't know what else to say.
I think to hop into the Tom Cruise argument that you're talking about, I would compare his acting abilities to the fact, like, the same argument of people not liking Nickelback. Like, they're freaking good. Tom Cruise is a very good actor.
I think it kind of goes to he's always in the same kind of roles. I think he's got his niche. Sure. I'm sure there's movies that I'm forgetting about but when you think of Tom Cruise, you do think of action. Most of the movies that come to head would come to the top of my head.
Yeah, but if you go back to Rain Man, I mean, we were talking about this. Mans is watching it with me.
Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
That's a good option.
No, I agree, and I think back to last week's talk about, like, Liam Neeson has a character too that he plays, but he's been in those different movies, those one-offs and comedies and whatnot, and Tom Cruise probably obviously has too. But when you think of Tom Cruise, you just think he's got that niche role. Right. So I think that was maybe my thought, was that, okay, here's another Tom Cruise movie. I didn't really have any other expectations besides what I've seen him do in the past, and as the movie wrapped up, couldn't be a bigger Tom Cruise guy.
Yeah, I agree. And he didn't. They didn't want to do it. There's like a 10-year gap that they were just constantly talking about. Hey, we got to make this movie. Like, we have the script, we have everything set here, and they just kept delaying it and delaying it. And then they wanted to do it over COVID, I saw, and they just were like, you know what? It's not the time. And then they released it in 2022, and it was the biggest movie of the year.
I thought they did film during COVID. I thought he had a huge.
They filmed, but they didn't release. They filmed, but they didn't release.
Yeah, so I remember being in the news where he lost his shit because some people weren't following protocol, and like Tom Cruise is definitely known for just total professional on set, and kind of like Christian Bale, where everything needs to be correct. And
how much do you guys think that he made for it? Not to cut you off, Geese, but to like throw into your argument of like, professional and thrown in there, and like serious about getting it done right. How much do you guys think he made on the movie?
Oof. Yeah, I don't even have a good guess. I don't even know what the typical
90 mil
pay. Yeah, I don't know what the typical pay rate is for.
I mean, I have to assume it was like a $600 million film. So I'll say 90 million.
I'll throw out a number, but also I think because Tom Cruise has had such a long career that when you get big names like this, especially when you're remaking an old movie, I guess not remaking it, but making a sequel of it, you got to pay top dollar for something like that. So 90 million kind of gives me, I guess, a landing point. So I'll go a little bit higher and say like 110.
You guys are very good. It's a reported $100 million that he made, but if you think about it, I have the numbers too. Domestically, it made 700 million. Worldwide, 1.5 billion.
Oh, see,
he's you know what I mean? He's the guy. So like
Yeah.
that percentage is fair. You know what I
That was a good ballpark by me, though, man.
Yeah, that's
I'll
pretty
take
good.
credit for
Yeah.
that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, literally, if you average our numbers out, we hit it on the nose. This movie also won 5 Oscars and it won Best Picture, so it won the big one. It was the movie of the
Yeah.
year.
It
Oh
was
wow,
for sure.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it won Best Sound, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Visual Effects, Best Film Editing, and Best Picture. So it was the movie of 2023 at the Oscars.
Speaking of what you say, visual Oscar.
Visual effects, best visual effects. Yeah.
So speaking of visual effects, almost all of those plane scenes are real. Like
Yeah.
I know they use CGI and everything, and that was the what is, I want to say a more, but not really. That was why everyone loved the first movie, because of how real they went with it. Like very low special effects, CGI.
800 hours of flight time filled for the movie. I found out 800 hours for a.
And those
2-hour
actors
movie.
are in those cockpits. Yeah, it's a Navy guy flying it, but they're actually doing the training. They're actually in those planes.
I
Well, that's
think did
something
I
that
see
people
something where he did it where Tom was actually in the plane? I think he can fly
Well,
those suckers.
I was gonna say I think Tom Cruise is known for mostly in most of his like movies. He does a lot of his own stunts. I think he does most all of them. I think there's like noteworthy like credibility to Tom Cruise in most of his movies because he is in all these action movies. I'm like 99% sure he gets a lot of credit because he does most of all of his own stunts.
You should be 100% because that is
he did not-
completely true.
He did
Yeah.
not fly those planes.
No, he does. He can
Okay.
do it. He is trained to do it. The government
Right.
won't let him, based
Right.
off my knowledge of
Makes sense.
because he tried, and so he went through and got all the certifications he needed, and then they ultimately just no, it's government plane. We can't let you do it.
That hobby. That's your hobby.
Right. Yeah.
If you're making 100 million in a movie, that can be your hobby.
I know you talked about it, Trev, but talking about the beginning of the movie. So when I watched this on Paramount, I don't know where you guys watched it. I'm assuming probably Paramount as well.
Mhm.
So when I went to watch it, I clicked on the old one to start, and kind of got through it. I'm like, oh, this has got that old school feel to it. And then I realized I was watching the one, the original. So I backed out of it, found Top Gun Maverick, clicked on that one, started watching it. The intro was exactly the same. The song was the same. It rolled into Danger Zone. I haven't obviously seen the movie, the old movie, but I thought that was cool. I mean, you said what, 40 years apart?
Yeah, it was in the 80s. I forget what year.
Makes sense for it was awesome to I was like having a quick deja vu moment because I just watched the first 4 minutes intro of Top Gun and then I switched it to Maverick and it was the exact same intro, obviously a little bit more modern technology and the shots were a little bit better or clean, I guess. You could tell it was newer, but it was the exact same intro. The song was the same and then rolling into whether it's Kenny Loggins or not, like you said, but Danger Zone started playing and they started the exact same. So I'm sure for folks that saw the original, I know you guys had, and anybody that saw it back when it came out, watching it again, I'm sure it kind of riled up the feelings and got you fired up about the new movie.
I don't know what
100%.
instrument they use, or the sound effects that they're using in the beginning with that kind of, like whatever that sound is. I don't know if my mic picked it up, but that kind of puts you in the place. Like it puts you in the movie. I think a lot of the reasons these movies get those awards and big awards and they're so successful is they put you in the movie.
Right where you don't. I didn't even care about criticism. I wasn't even looking for it.
No,
Like Hans Zimmer is the composer for that intro song and some of the music outside of the
Goat.
main singles they use. Absolute goat.
Yeah.
He knows how to get me riled up. Like I just wanted to watch planes.
Well, we've talked about consistently over the last couple movies too, the intro and how the older movies had the songs playing, kind of rolling into the movie, and then the newer movies have that first initial scene to kind of get you. This one being 2022 and paying homage to the old one and doing the song intro, the old school song intro. It wasn't really it rolled some credits and it didn't give you necessarily the feel of watching a movie from the 90s or 80s. But I thought it definitely was cool that it incorporated that old school start to a movie of you are playing music, you are showing the credits kind of rolling, who's in it, the director, etc. But it gave you that old school feel for a newer movie.
Oh, and riding his motorcycle too. I know the motorcycle scene back in the first movie is a big one. I know you haven't seen it, Brendan, but now that you go and rewatch it, you'll notice that that's kind of his kind of shtick and whatnot. I don't know. I didn't catch on it if it was the exact same bike or whatever, but cool older bike. I think it was a Honda CBR or something like that. Yeah, not a bike guy.
My perspective being different, obviously, without having seen any of these before, but just kind of getting into Tom Cruise's character Pete. I was watching him run on the treadmill with an oxygen mask, getting ready because they're working on that project to hit Mach 10, and they were shutting it down. They had whatever time to do it. They hadn't hit Mach 9 yet.
Scene, dude.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, dude, I work out, right? I stay healthy as best I can. Like, I'm not running on a treadmill with an oxygen mask. Like, some of the things that these people, and this is like real life stuff. I mean, athletes and people in the military, like they do that. And then just to get in the plane to try and hit Mach 10 when the operation's getting shut down, like the work being put in. Respect, because that's real. People do that.
Well, and to go into that scene too of the testing and what he's doing now after retirement, he's not flying the planes and fighting anybody anymore. He's actually doing shit for the government and contract work, and people are working with him / for him. And then to hop in there, and he still checks his ego. Like, they're telling him, hey, like, and he knew that today was supposed to be 9, Mach 9. Today is 9. And now if he doesn't get to 10, they're going to cut it. So he's like, all right.
I don't like that look, Mav.
Yeah, it's the only one I got. So if he goes to 10, you're good. But he's just got to push for a little bit more.
I feel like he knew even if he hit 10, though, they were going to get shut down no matter what. So he went for it.
Yeah. Well, and his character is definitely like, yeah, he knew that for sure, but his character, and it shows why, pushing past Mach 10. That's just who he is. I mean, they talk about throughout the movie too, like he's still a captain and he's been around for a long time and he could be a higher rank, but I think that's just who he is. Like you could tell
when you see the old movie, you'll kind of appreciate his character even more. I think like you definitely got it with that first scene, but
well, it's so much more in your face in the first movie, Brendan, where you're like even more so. You just fuck yeah, like this guy's got it.
Well, in that opening scene too, when they're shutting it down and the plane taking off goes right over the admiral's head. Awesome shot, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So fitting. I mean, I didn't know who that guy was when they showed it, and then obviously, of course, he walks into the operations room and you find out who he is. But that shot of him taking off right out, like the admiral showing up to just shut the whole operation down, and he's taking off and it goes right over his head. I probably would have fallen on my ass. I mean, they showed how much power it had behind it with the wind and the movement of everything around him. But flying right over that dude's head, I would have fallen over and probably also shit myself.
That's Ed Harris for you, man. He is another GOAT. Let's talk about it because I love him.
Is that the director? No, that's who the Admiral was. Ed Harris. Yeah, he's a legend.
Chester Kane is played by Ed Harris, and that guy is just so gritty and hard, like just badass.
You don't make guys like that. You don't audition guys like that. Like he is. You pick that guy for that role.
Exactly.
How fast is Mach 10?
I'll look it up.
Is it? Yeah, I need to know. I knew Mach. Like I knew the terminology and like flight speed, but I'm just curious how fast Mach 10.
You want to take a guess?
I'll tell you, it's faster than Mach 9.
You want to take a guess, Brennan?
I looked it up too, Trav. Oh my god.
Like in miles per hour.
Yeah. It's 10 times the speed of sound. Obviously,
okay.
Mach 1 is the speed of sound.
And I don't have anything to go off of here. So this could be just an awful guess. So. Let's do like 1,500. Is that even fucking close? Okay. 10,000.
A little lower.
Let's go 5,000.
7672. 7,672 miles per hour.
I can't even fathom that speed.
You're going. I mean, what's the circumference of the Earth?
I'll look that up while you tell me more about Mach 10.
I think
Because that's
Earth's circumference is 24,901. So every hour he could circle the world almost in 3 hours.
So
that's
you bring up an
unbelievable.
interesting point there, Trev, because 7,000 miles an hour, and then he crashes,
Yeah.
and he's just okay.
As he's slowing down,
I had
though.
that.
As he's slowing
I had
down.
that. How is he not dead? He had to have ejected.
He would have been dead.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. That was I didn't have a whole lot of critiques of this movie because again I'm probably the worst critique that we've got on
It's
here.
like the one part. It's like the one thing where he would have been dead, dude.
Yeah, I get
red
so
mist.
I get so encapsulated by every movie that I miss some of the major critiques. And I agree. I don't think this one had many, but I didn't miss that.
Good. That's good. That's why I think us watching these movies is better than critics watching the movies, because when somebody points shit like that out, like, I don't really give a shit. I give a shit when he lands and he's in the middle of nowhere and you think it's hilarious.
Yeah, and obviously starting the movie and it blowing up, yeah, he didn't die, right? The movie just started, so yeah, he's definitely gonna be dead. But I did think about that too. I'm like, okay, like he's not dead from that.
How much do you care about spoilers, Brendan, of the previous one?
I mean, not really. I mean, I'll eventually watch it, but
like just obviously we talked about how he is as a person. Like, obviously he's still captain. Like, he could have been promoted. He could have been this. Could have been that. But the fact that it circles back to his old rival from the movie, Iceman, now being the commander of literally the naval fleet out there. So like the top guy. So now him doing all that shit, making it up with his rival. They're good friends at the end of that movie. Now he's in charge. He can put him in these positions. He easily could have been, court-martialed. You're done. You're even going to jail for disobeying me. You know what I mean? Shit like that. It's cool to see that full circle from a previous movie now lead you into the plot of the new one.
I also liked how a lot of people it felt like they had an underlying respect for him, even if he's just such a, kind of a prick. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone he is that to everyone, but at the end of the day, you have to respect his record. Like, he's doing impossible shit, but it's just against the military code.
That was one relationship I didn't get a vibe for, so I appreciate you jumping into that, because him and Iceman's relationship, you don't really. Because he can't, he's obviously got a health condition that we'll talk. He couldn't talk, but I didn't. That was one relationship I didn't quite understand. So that
Here's
is
how I'd break it down for you. Not to jump ahead in the movie, but the character-wise, it's a similar vibe to Rooster and what's his face? Hangman. It's the same vibe.
Okay.
While we're on that point, Glenn Powell, I have mentioned in the last 3 podcasts.
I wrote down Glenn Powell too. I thought that was crazy because him showing up, and I know who he is now that I've seen him, and I didn't recognize his name when you said it last week. But when I saw him, I started laughing because how crazy is that? He just happens to be in the next movie. Well, talk about an upgrade from Trader number 1 or whatever, Trader number 3, whatever he was in terms of the cast in 2012, and now he's playing I wouldn't say a lead role.
Fact for you on that too.
He was a main role in terms of being Hangman and being involved in the movie. He's
such a dick too.
He was a total douchebag. Yeah.
Punchable face.
Fun fact for that, Glenn Powell definitely was one of the guys in the running Rooster. And when he didn't get it, he was pretty discouraged. And one of the fact sites I was looking at. And they ended up saying, hey, like, just take this role of Hangman and just make it your own. So, I mean, that just goes to show how good of an actor he is. That was kind of his thing.
Yeah, he nailed it. And it's similar to the previous film, Brendan, because that's that relationship that those guys had all throughout school. So it's really just a callback to that first movie.
And it's common, like that's reality in that world, in that military field, and the pilots and the Top Gun scene, like that. Everybody has said that that's what it's like, and it's big ego check. Big everything. Everybody's got to be the top dog. So I'm sure that happens in real life in those, schools.
Well, I can imagine, because I didn't know Top Gun was I actually looked that up as soon as before I watched the movie, just to see if Top Gun was a real thing, and it is. And they talk about it the whole time, the best of the best. And Top Gun is, exactly what the name is the Top Gun. So you're bringing in a lot of egos because they all think they are the best. They are the best. So I definitely can see why that would happen within those environments because you are competing to execute these missions and you're brought in for a reason. So that dynamic of having to, I wouldn't say bigger egos, but because I think they all kind of have that own ego and they should being able to do what they do. But that relationship makes a ton of sense because it's the top, you are trying to be the top gun.
I loved all their call signs, and it's just like, fuck your first name, dude. Where's Rooster, Hangman, and then you got
what are you talking
Bob.
about? Yeah, what are you talking about? Bob's the best.
Well, that's another point too to that relationship. So Iceman was the one that selected Pete or Maverick to come back and teach, and Cyclone, John Hamm's character, didn't want him. You're like my last choice. But he, obviously got overruled, and Tom's coming in thinking he's going to fly these planes, execute the mission, and he lets him know like you're not executing it. You're going to teach it.
Yeah, another ego check. I wrote down ego check for the first like 5 or so scenes. A lot of them were just like, hey, and getting humbled by what you think is going to happen and then what actually happens.
Yeah. Yeah, so coach me up a little bit on, I kind of got it, but I did want to get coached up on the Goose Rooster. I obviously it's his son. You learn a lot about him, but I didn't quite get you kind of pick it up throughout the movie as to why Rooster is not the biggest Maverick fan.
The animosity between the two, you do see it later on in the movie, is the fact that Maverick pulled his papers for the first.
Yep.
So he had to take another 4 years. So that was the big one. And he's thinking, and he says it later on too, like, oh, you don't think I'm good enough? You don't think I'm worthy? Like, you're just blaming it on, my dad's death type shit. And in reality, he didn't think he was ready, but he didn't want to tell him. And it was his mom's wish. She did not want him to go.
Yeah, I definitely got a lot more of that relationship as the movie went on, but I do know at the beginning there was obviously some animosity and some tension between the two of them, and you pick up on it, but I wasn't quite sure what had happened, so I was curious as to a little bit more about that, but
I'll answer your question there, Brendan. I'll answer your question. Maverick and Goose were co-pilots, and they had a emergency in one of their training, I believe, and they pulled the chute, and Goose died pulling his chute, and Maverick blames himself, and Rooster was like 6 years old at the time.
Something like that, yeah.
Was Rooster in the first movie?
As a kid, you see him briefly, right? So he's just a little guy hanging around, and Maverick and Goose used to play that song, which then Rooster's playing and everything. So that was the cause of it. And then Maverick trying to protect Rooster from himself, essentially, is what led to the climax that we had in this film.
Right, and the training that they were doing, the reason why there was no it was the fact that I'm pretty sure, if correct me if I'm wrong, Geese, but I'm pretty sure they were doing something a little more unorthodox and fighting each other with Iceman, I think is what ended up happening.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that, but the code names I thought were cool, and that kind of gets us to that bar scene, because that's kind of when you get introduced to all the different Top Guns per se being brought into the movie. And Bob, Electric Bob being the only one that isn't a cool name, but yeah, you get the introduction to Hangman, you get the introduction to Rooster, obviously Maverick's there, and plenty of other ones, but that bar scene was cool, and I wrote down one thing: the rules are rules. When he slaps his cell phone down on the bar and she rings the bell and you're buying around, that was very funny. And rules are rules, the standard is the standard. Those types of quotes are always going to be just top tier for me.
Yeah, and then background on Penny, because you brought her up earlier. She is only mentioned in the first movie.
Right.
And she was, I believe, an admiral's daughter that Maverick was fooling around with. And had a huge big like blow up, but that was like prior to the first movie, so that was like the intro to Maverick, and then she shows up now again in this film.
Was she not in? You said she was mentioned in the first movie. She wasn't really a main person or a main character in the movie.
I think she's mentioned one time, maybe
Wow.
twice.
Okay, I would have guessed that they had a whole side story going on.
I had to look it up. I had no idea who Penny was either when
Okay.
I watched it the first time, and then I remember looking it up and everything to find out who she was.
Ace, did you watch it in theaters or did you watch it outside?
I watched it in theaters the first time.
Yeah, same. It was epic in theaters.
I had
If
to.
it comes back, I'd go.
And it goes back to the first movie again, is that if you had watched that one, I feel like you were like 100% seeing that in theaters, knowing what you're going into.
And then Miles Teller comes in, Rooster. Miles Teller's the man. I don't think he was
so good.
I don't think he was the best. He wouldn't be my choice for who I thought played the best role in terms of acting. I thought he did a great job. I'm not trying to discredit him, but I love Miles Teller, dude. He's such a good actor. And him walking in, everybody's kind of in uniform. And he's walking in with a wife beater on, you know, and like a plaid kind of short sleeve button up.
Pays homage to his old man too. Once you see the other movie and you look at him playing this character, they did a really good job dressing him up and the stash and the hair. I mean, he definitely looks like his son.
It's on that same point when he starts playing Great Balls of Fire when Pete kind of gets kicked out of the bar and they toss him out. And that they show that flashback of Goose and Maverick singing that same song. That's kind of when you start to pick up on some of those connections for somebody that hasn't seen the old movie. But that bar scene, I thought, just overall, was underrated. I think that there's definitely scenes that we can talk about and we will talk about throughout the movie that, from an action standpoint, and kind of maybe our favorite scenes, maybe not the number one, but when it comes to just that scene as a whole, getting the introduction to the characters, really getting a good feel on the relationships, who everybody is, and then also bringing some flashbacks into the old movie. I thought that was incredible.
Back to the last pod, like we were, how much did we talk about character intros? What a great scene for character intros. You know, the dick measuring contest of playing pool and who's better, and jabbing Rooster with the pool cue from Phoenix. You know, kind of like, hey, how you doing?
You know why we call him Hangman?
Yep.
Because he leave you hanging.
Yep.
That pool shot I wrote down too. That was, what a shot! Smacking somebody behind you and then nailing the corner pocket. Yeah. That's a pool shot. I will say this. I wrote this down, and not to take us on a serious note, but something that really hit home in that scene was, we go out and we have fun, right? St. Patrick's Day is coming up. You go out on the weekend and you start to worry about some of your problems, right? The morning or the hangover or whatever it is. But when you talk about folks that have enlisted in the military, prior, current, future, whatever branch, whether it's Army, Navy, the Air Force and all the things that come with it, those times that they have, right? And we worry about waking up on a Monday and going to work. These guys are literally having a great night out, knowing that tomorrow their lives could be taken. So one common theme for me, and I know I'll get to it towards the end too, but there was a lot of emotion that I felt in the movie. I have a couple family members that have been enlisted. I don't know a ton. I mean, I have some friends, and obviously I just mentioned family being involved in the military. But there was a lot of an emotional connect to this movie, and I think it kind of comes with any sort of military or movie that's involved with war. But I thought the bar scene did a great job of showing that these people, they're just like us, in terms of go out, have some beers, bust each other's balls, and have some fun at the bar. And then tomorrow you're waking up and, you're putting your life at risk. I really, the emotional connection that I got from this movie was through the roof, and that's going to be a common theme for me as we continue to discuss. But I thought the bar scene did a great job of a little bit of that relief, giving you a little bit of who these people are and showing that it's just like you and me, but their problems and maybe what they might face tomorrow is going to be a little bit different than what we're going to see.
Yeah, the word I'm looking at is sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, Monday morning, you're just, normal people just go to a job and, there's stresses with that. But, going into a mission that even the, John Hamm's character is going in there and saying, hey, like, he might not come back. Well, what other job, what other thing is out there that that's the case?
How much do you think that bar bill was for Maverick?
Didn't he have 2 rounds? Because the first one was, she said, "You're lucky it's early," and then what was the second one for? What did he do to get the second one?
It was phone first. Phone was
Right.
on the table for the first one, and then his card got declined.
Yeah.
Card got declined. Yeah, and he had like $15. Like I saw 2 5s and a couple 1s.
Yeah. So
That's not gonna.
I was thinking where it's like, dude, the first bill was probably what maybe 20, 30 people, and then
I would say more than that. I mean, it was kind of popping in there. I'd say at least 50.
50
people?
at the first one, and
Yeah,
then
and you're
the
talking
second
about
one
$5
had to
a
be
drink.
like what 150, 200.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's in the ballpark of almost $1,000.
Easily.
$8
Easily.
beers. So
Yeah.
300. Yeah, 2400 right there. That makes sense,
Probably.
I think, from
Yeah.
the money he handed her later.
That was a big wad.
Yeah. That was a stack of cash. That's for sure. And then once that scene kind of wraps up is when you really get to dive in, and also they probably didn't get absolutely hammered, but they're up at the crack of dawn, introducing Maverick as the teacher. You start to feel that emotion. They were kind of giving him shit the night before. The old man, Hangman, comes up and says, "Put these on the old timers tab." And the next day, they're all sitting there in class, and guess who shows up to walk in to teach?
Oh shit!
Right. Yeah, I thought that was cool, and giving you, again, it goes back to that feel of, if you're gonna stay out with the Wolves, better be able to get up with the Roosters. Not no pun intended in terms of Rooster being one of the characters, but I've had that told to me before. If you're gonna stay out with the Wolves, you better be able to wake up with the Roosters, and that's exactly what happened. And then intro Maverick and to teach him about the mission.
Well, I think too, hopping into the fact that they do have a little bit of respect for him. I mean, he was the guy back in the day, but all the shit that he did and unorthodox stuff here and there. When you're a pilot hopping out of whatever flight school, you're thinking you're hot shit because you know the book, you know what to do, who's telling you what to do, mission stuff, this, that, and the other thing. And then you got him telling you what to do, and you're like, okay, well, whatever. I at least know what he's got going on. And then you roll in him actually flying with him. Big. This is another one. I capitalized this one. Big ego check for everybody in the flight school. Like, okay, here's a 60-year-old dude showing you up in a plane he probably hasn't flown in X amount of years,
Nuts on table.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And he killed them all. I mean, they go through those, the trainings where there's two planes, and he's the enemy, right? And it's you kill me or I kill you, and he just absolutely torched them time in and time out. Hangman's ego got checked big. Rooster getting killed early on.
They all did.
Every single one of them. They had no shot.
Picking on Rooster
Absolutely no
too.
shot.
Picking on Rooster a little bit more, I think, pissed him off a little bit more. But it also showed the fact that he's willing to give him a little extra chance to say, "Hey, you're not ready for this. You better get to work."
Yeah, and I wrote down, having not seen the movie, just Maverick dog. I mean, obviously I knew he was the big swinging dick in terms of they're bringing him back to teach. You've got a lot of polarizing opinions about him. Cyclone hated him. I mean, when going back to what you talked about throwing the books out, Cyclone, you could just see the pissed off face that Cyclone had.
He's
Like,
dangerous.
what is this guy doing? And then he gets up there in the air with them and just absolutely torches these kids. But it's necessary. I think it sets up the plot of, they think they're hot shit, and then you bring in this old vet and absolutely just dog walks them. It's like a Sunday stroll for him with all the things he's able to do within the air. And then I think that, not that they didn't respect him before, but if they definitely did after the first training session.
Oh yeah.
You
Especially
also
because
learn-
none of them have real flight. Like none of them have been in combat. One of them has like a confirmed kill, I think, or Hangman does, and even that's questionable. And then Maverick's been in live combat, and he's the only one to do it in the last 60 years. Just goes to show you that these guys don't know shit.
Well, it's comparable to the old saying in baseball is the BP hitter, right? The guy who's hitting home runs in batting practice because the pitcher's throwing cheese right where you want to hit it, right? You're taking swings in practice, then you get in the big game and you see 100 miles an hour come down the pipe. It's a little bit different. So these guys are all the batting cage warriors. Like you said, I think Hangman, you mentioned, had a little bit of experience, but they've done really, really well in terms of testing, where they're at in their careers thus far, and there's a reason why they're getting picked to join Top Gun. But when you put them out there against the GOAT, or you put them in live action, they were like toddlers. They had no idea how to get to Maverick.
The message that I think was coming out of this movie, and it's hard sometimes in an action movie to take a message out of it. But when you look at the movie top down, it comes a little bit from the first one. First one's more action for me, and there really isn't much of a message. But now that when you really look at it, and the fact that he's teaching all these people that are going to go out on this major mission and possibly not come back, the message is just follow your instincts and send it. You know what I mean? Like, it's the only way that he was able to get those guys is to do unorthodox things. Trust your gut, trust your skills, and like the message in the movie that they kept saying is it's not the plane, it's who's flying it.
I think that goes back to the ego checks that we see throughout the film. Sometimes, like you not even sometimes, you absolutely need that ego up there. You need them on that wall. You want them on that wall. You need them in that plane.
I know that this is not necessarily the same topic in terms of that. I think that don't think, just do, and it's not the plane, it's the pilot, are two consistent messages throughout the movie. But I think kind of looking back at the last couple pods we've had too, I've been a big quote person, and I continue to kind of take that away. But again, getting back to the emotional tie, there's two quotes within this same time frame of the movie that stood out to me. One is when Cyclone's talking to Maverick about teaching them and kind of what the mission is and what he should be teaching, and then he hits him with I want to teach them how to come home. Like the people in charge in the military, I mean, the military is a machine, right? And there's a mission at hand that has to be accomplished, but getting the human element back into it with Maverick, of hitting him with, I'm also going to teach them how to come home, because he's lost countless people. He's lost his best friends. Who knows how many people, in this fictional story that he's lost throughout his career within the military. But teaching them how to come home was one of them. And then when they have their post-training session chat within the classroom, and they're talking about how he killed X, Y, and Z within those planes, why did I get you? And it kind of goes back and forth, right? After every single flight test with each individual person in Top Gun, they go to, after he kills them, they go to the classroom. Next flight, next man up. Kills him, back to the classroom. And he tells him, don't tell me, tell his family. Like, those things are real, and I mentioned it earlier with the emotional connection. It just was so good at bringing you back to real life of this. Yes, this is a fictional movie, but those are legitimate concerns and everyday things that happen, that I think it was really teaching these young bucks, like, don't tell me, tell his family when you're sitting at his funeral why he's dead because you didn't communicate. Yep. The communication aspect of these flights, and I wrote down communication too, because we talk about communications in sports, and communicating with anybody in life is important, but in those situations and those you have split second decisions and communication when your life's on the line, don't tell me, tell it to his family at your funeral. I think that had to have woken those characters up a little bit, and those are legitimate concerns, and I think those comments are made as well if you're really trying to break somebody within the military.
Well, I think if you look at Hangman's character, he was still ego, nose in the air, whatever, even after he said that shit. So, I mean, when you get to the, not to jump ahead in the movie, but when you get to the point where he's got to select people, that's why he's not considered. He
never got there.
Nope.
He again, and we can talk about towards the back end, but he never got there within those training sessions, because it was, again, the dick measuring contest between Rooster and Hangman clearly being 1A and 1B of who's going to lead this or who's going to get selected. Hangman never got there. His ego never really got checked. They checked.
Show the skills. He did show the skills.
Yeah, he had the skill sets for sure, but he never considered the other people in the room as much as he considered himself.
I'm sure that happens in the real world a ton too, that we've all seen and all that shit. But
Right.
Some people it just never gets checked, and then they move all the way up, and then once they get disappointed by something,
Until they run into the Maverick, and then he checks them.
right?
But
So even then, sometimes it doesn't happen.
And then after that whole training session too, is when he gets the text from our he goes to see Iceman, and that's when you learn that his health is obviously in critical condition, and he gets the text of, you need to come here now. And I believe that was probably his wife letting him know that he can't even, it hurts him to speak.
Yep.
And then they meet up, and he's typing a lot of his words to Maverick within that scene. And I wrote down like it's time to let go, because it definitely felt like Rooster was always going to be held back and targeted. It's almost like when you coach your child. I think you're going to be harder on your kid, more so than the other kids on the team, right? If T-ball,
Right.
whatever it is. And that's what Maverick was doing with Rooster, and Iceman telling him it's time to let go. I think that's when he really opened his mind to, this kid's got some talent, and you've got to pull the reins back a little bit and let him be him.
Little background for you, Brendan. Val Kilmer, who plays Iceman, actually had throat cancer, and so all that in the film is real.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It wasn't playing the
so
part.
if you're following it before this movie came out, like that scene hits so hard, where like him actually, he can't speak today. I think it might be a little better, but he had surgery for it and it took away his ability. And he was battling throat cancer during this movie.
It was Tom Cruise's idea to make sure that he was in the film too. They weren't originally going to have him in there, so he basically made it happen.
And it was kind of the only time he was in it was that scene, right? I mean, he wasn't really. I mean, his picture of the past were in the movie,
Yeah,
but
that was it.
Yeah, and this is another big thing I took away from that scene, going back to our conversation last week of what, this guy could speak the common tongue the whole time, and I mentioned it being powerful, and the same thing goes here. He's typing every message, and then he did talk towards the back end of that conversation, and it was what he said was powerful. I mean, it's the same exact principle that we talked about, where the guy in the prison in Dark Knight Rises is speaking a different language, and then all of a sudden he speaks English. He kind of pulled the wool over or whatnot. That this isn't a pull the wool over on you moment, but it's just a powerful point. And I think just movies in general, when you have a scene like that, a character that's typing everything he's saying, communicating via text, and then he talks to him towards the back end of that scene to really hit home. Extremely powerful, and it just goes back to our talking point of last week of when that happens, just the emotion and the power behind it. It means a lot. And I thought that was really cool how they implemented that.
For sure. Yeah, like Geese is saying, it hit pretty good in the theaters too.
And it just shows your rivalry that they had in the first movie, where they were at each other's throats. Like multiple interactions where these guys are just digging each other, and now there's mutual respect. They're, I would say, best friends, and they always look out for each other. And now this is, Kilmer's time to come in and show Mav, like, man, you gotta, I'll say, open up and allow yourself to like kind of love again, because Goose was his brother, and he was still holding on to all that guilt.
Not really his brother, but like, his brother.
Yeah. The relationship
Can we talk about something quick that we haven't hit?
Yeah.
Geese. I mean, your name's pretty close to Goose.
I've thought about that multiple times.
That was my uncle's nickname for my dad, was Goose. So my dad got Goose growing up as a kid, and then I'm Geese.
Yeah, I was just about to make an idiot of myself and be like, does it stem from this? But no, your last name literally has geese in it, so makes a ton of sense. But it also, that scene felt like it was the turning point, kind of that halfway point of, okay, shit's about to hit the fan, because now Tom Cruise, Maverick, things are starting to fire up a little bit within his character. what's going on, the relationships, and having somebody that, I don't know the backstory. You guys have talked to me a lot about it, but somebody they butted heads with and now kind of coming to the same page of getting advice from that person and how to progress. Felt like that good halfway point, and I didn't really think that much about that character because I didn't know, one, I didn't know that he actually had throat cancer. Two, I didn't really realize until this moment that was the only time he was in the movie. But that was probably the best cameo then because there wasn't really any other cameos unless I missed something.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Tom Cruise is a big like stick shit in there just for funsies. It's all business. So I think everything's pretty serious as far as if somebody's got a name to him, they're gonna have a role.
Brendan, what did you think about the beach scene?
In terms of the football, dogfight football?
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. First off, dogfight football is not something I've ever heard of. The concept of playing offense and defense at the same time just kind of blew up my brain. Like what is going on here? The beach scene was awesome. I mean, you talk about building a team and team culture, and I think Cyclone shows up asking like, "What the hell are we doing here?" That is exactly what you have to do. I mean, the things that they're doing in training and these impossible missions, or I think they talk about it being consecutive miracles happening at the same time is kind of what they're looking to do in terms of the mission that they're training for. But then it goes back to the bar scene. You pull it back, you peel it back a little bit, and you go to the beach where they're playing dogfight football, offense and defense just having a good time. That scene was awesome. Is there like some ties to the old movie, or are you just curious what I thought? But I took a lot out of that scene.
They played volleyball in the first one on the beach, I believe, and that was an iconic scene from then. And then I don't know if you guys remember when the movie came out in 22, but the Miles Teller like slow motion beach little thing was huge on the internet. That was like the scene.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Oh my
that
God,
scene is
Miles
literally
Teller."
just for sex appeal, essentially. Outside of
Exactly.
like the team building, thematically it's the same from the first film, but it's literally just an excuse to show sexy, sweaty men. And every time I see Tom Cruise run, I laugh because it's just so serious.
He's quick though. You gotta admit that he's quick. I wonder if he ran the 40.
I think there was only one dude with the shirt on. I do
That
remember
was Bob. That was Bob.
Yeah, I thought it was Bob, and that makes sense. Like that's a small detail that they didn't miss on. Is like Bob, right? The guy that doesn't have the cool code name or nickname, is the one guy with the shirt on at the beach when we're just. I mean, these dudes are just shredded. And the one guy with their shirt on is Bob.
Classic.
But I do think that is they didn't miss in terms of the plot of bringing back into the culture of how serious this is, but also like you still got to be able to enjoy it, create a team. I mean, it goes back to the communication aspect. I think offense and defense at the same time. Again, it blows my mind. That's crazy what's going on. But talk about needing communication. That's what I mean. I mean, football itself. Yeah. In general, you got to have all 11 guys on the same page on every player. It's not going to work, right? One guy doesn't do his job, and the play's probably going to flop. Now you're incorporating offense and defense, and the communication aspect of it. That is exactly what I mean. Cyclone was like, thought there's this guy's a jerk off out here. They're playing football on the beach. We got this literally mission that we've got to get on, and we're fucking around out here playing dogfight football. But talk about communication you got to have. I mean, the ways that Maverick implemented teaching communication and team culture, they didn't miss on that within the plot of the movie. They didn't miss on that within the writing.
Well, it's the same thing of being unorthodox. And unorthodox in something like this is how you do it. There's no... I love the scene where he throws the book in the garbage can. Friggin' love that. It's like perfect to his character. But if you break down the mission, I mean, you got 2.5 minutes. You're flying super low to the ground, super tight corners. You got to pull up, flip over, go back down, have your first guy hit the laser, second guy on his way up, pulling 9 Gs, hit his gun aiming backwards for the missile to lock on. Next guy's got to come through. The next two, same thing. got to go laser. On his way out, he's got to hit the missiles again. So I mean, this is a super serious, and like they're saying, how many miracles? 4? Did they count?
Two consecutive miracles was the terminology they were using.
And then hoping you get out alive.
But
right, the
at the end of
escape
the day, you don't have that in a book. There's no book for pulling off those maneuvers. So I mean, they did bring in the right guy. When you look at Iceman's decision to say, hey, like, yeah, he's made all these mistakes. He's made current mistakes. He's made X, Y, and Z, but he's the guy to bring in because he's unorthodox. This mission needs to happen because it's, nuclear weapon type shit. This is serious. We need to make sure this happens and happens right. And I think eventually, the reason why he gets into the mix of potentially doing it is he really is him, and he's the only guy that can do it still.
I love that theme actually throughout the whole movie is that we all understand Maverick. He's a pilot. Plain and simple, that's what he does.
Life,
and then coming into this movie, they're like, no, it's going to be AI planes. No, you have to teach. And then when you can't teach, you do. And it just kind of reiterates that this is who Maverick is. This is why he's still a captain. This is why he doesn't want to be promoted. It's because he's a pilot. At the end of the day, that's all he does.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it character building and introducing, they did a really good job. And like we said earlier in the movie, you really didn't need to see the first one to really get who he was, because they kind of threw it out there in his accomplishments. And yes, he, maybe did some bad shit and not necessarily like, against the grain, against the law, but like kind of bent the rules and did things unorthodox. But at the end of the day, you kind of got to make things work. If everything was black and white and cookie cutter, nothing would be fun and nothing would get done.
Facts.
Well, I think to your point about AI, that, just kind of catching it up to modern day, all the people scared about, the robots, and they're taking, they're going to be able to take jobs and take place of people. And yeah, I think within the military, you would prefer, obviously, 10 times out of 10 to save as many lives as possible. So if you can get a mission accomplished with drones, you can get a mission accomplished without sending a human life into danger. Absolutely, we want to do that. But there's a human element to how we react and the people that you put in there, that even if humans were controlling a robot or controlling a drone or, controlling whatever it is that we're going to send, instead of having actual people executing some of these things, is the human element. And the unorthodox theme that you keep talking about, Trav, is like, you can't get that in a programmed robot, right? I think, maybe someday we'll get there, but I do think that even like in baseball, we've talked about already a couple times in this podcast, but like putting in umpires, yeah, you've got the strike zone. It's going to be 100%. Like, that is the strike zone. It's a robot. It's going to call balls and strikes. But the human element of some of these things that you want to replace, like, you can't get that within technology as much as the brain is going to work. And I think that it shows you, and that's something that kind of they hit on in this movie, is soon we're not going to have people flying these planes. It's all going to be, controlled by AI, and it's going to be controlled by robots. And I think that there's just a factor that's always going to stand true, that the people are going to respond differently. People are going to do different things because we're human, we're animals, than something that's artificial is going to ever do.
Well, I think to add on to that, the fact that I think we're far away from it is a robot's still going to try to find the quote unquote best answer or best solution. And in reality, like that, a computation or whatever is not going to find you that unorthodox one. It's going to try to find you the, by the book. Like we were
humans
saying
have a more likely chance to take the higher risk, and sometimes it pays off. And in Maverick's case, it does. But a computer's not taking that. It's going to take the highest probability, safest route. When in actuality, you need that risk-taking ability.
And what if AI doesn't have a conscience in saying like, hey, I might not make it out of this. Like, a computer's not going to care. Like, if it blows up, it's a computer. It doesn't feel. If it's dead, it's just
Well, it's the don't think, just do
Yep.
message that they send throughout the movie. Is Computers are not going to be able to do that. Everything we, as humans, and I know that they've created things, not to get it completely sidetracked, and we create things where you get them to start to think for themselves, but the thinking for themselves is still pulling data from anything else they can. Where
Exactly.
humans can react, whereas, as you alluded to, the computer, the robot, the whatever is always going to pull from something else because we are the ones that are building these things.
I
We're
think
far-
these are the smartest thoughts we've ever come up with, guys, and maybe we need to dial back, get back to being dumb.
I know, right? We'd write a book about this stuff, but no, I mean, it's true. I want to get back to the movie, but I think that theme of don't think, just do, getting into this conversation is you can't take that human element out of it, which is why I don't think, again, in our lifetime, we're ever going to see that completely take over because that human element is just always going to be there.
Yeah, it certainly can help, but not with these high risk situations.
We talked a lot about like one-liner quotes in our last podcast, and the one that I wrote a couple down, but the one that stuck out to me was when Cyclone goes, "Who the hell is that?" And it's just plain scene of Maverick running the course, just perfect, and showing everyone that it can be done. You guys just don't know that it can be, so you'll never push yourself to do it.
Right, and if he didn't do that and show his point, obviously Cyclone was the one that was going to start running the training, and he was being a little more lackadaisical with, okay, we're going to try to do it in 4 minutes. We're going to try to take the risk of, hey, at least we have a chance to fight these guys and stuff like that. Like, Maverick knew that was going to kill them all if that was the case, So I think that was another nuts on the table. Let's figure this shit out by me just showing you, like, hey, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Well, I think that also prior to him doing it was when they were going through, and something I didn't talk about that they mentioned in kind of the earlier scenes in the movie was the hard deck being 5,000 feet of altitude. And I know they had that scene where Rooster and Maverick are just plummeting to the ground, and it's kind of a game of chicken of who's going to pull first. But they talk about 5,000 feet being the hard deck of where we're wanting to go, and then Maverick's like, hey man, to complete this mission, it's 100 feet. Like, we're going to be going through the mountains. We're going to be we're going to be low to the ground so that the SAM, the anti-flight missiles can't see us, and they can't detect us on radar. And they talk about, dude, it's going to be 100. And he puts that piece of paper, because he's like, hey, every training session from here on out, I want it written and put in front of me before you execute it, or you go do it and execute that out there in the air. And then he throws down okay, well, this is me asking for approval to lower the hard deck to 100 feet because that's what I have to do. And then in that train, before Maverick does that, because I think they were getting ready to pull him off assignment at that point when he actually goes and does it, they were trying it. And they started to do it with the Top Gun
and none of them could do it, right?
None of them could do it. And that scene with Coyote, when they talk about pulling up and
blacking
out, dude, and he blacks out, and he's just doing everything he can to wake him up. He locks in his guns to whatever, get the buzzing noise to wake him up because he knows that he blacked out. That scene was so crazy, and it was so fast, and it was that emotional piece to me. I'm kind of moving up in my chair of what the hell is going on. Is Coyote going down? Is he going to lose somebody? They wake him up, and you kind of get that sigh of relief of, oh, thank God. And then you go over to the other plane, and they have an engine blowout where they had to end up ejecting. Dude, I was on the edge of my seat when Coyote was passed out and he was plummeting, and they got him to wake up, and it's finally
really cool, Brendan, to hear from you after just watching this the first time, because I know Geese probably thought the same thing. Like, knowing ahead of time in movies like this what ends up happening, it kind of ruins it a little bit. Yeah, like the excitement of it. Like, it's still very exciting, but now hearing your reaction because you just watched the movie is bringing me back to like how I felt watching it for the first time, and that's pretty cool.
Well, we talk about best scenes all the time, and I kept changing. Like, I'm taking notes, and I'm trying to write down my best scene. And the first one, and I didn't think it would be the best scene, but I've talked about the bar scene a lot, which I really enjoyed. And then you get to this scene, and I'm like, the coyote scene, dude, that was unbelievable in terms of just an exhilarating rush of what's going on. You think he's losing somebody. He saves him. He wakes him up. He comes back. He pulls up. Coyote's good. Flip the Phoenix and Bob's plane.
And they failed. And they failed the mission.
And
Like
they failed.
They did not get it.
They failed the mission, and it was post failure. They're kind of just, the foot's off the gas per se. Their adrenaline kind of slows down because the mission's over, because he had already killed Phoenix and Bob's plane because of the communication or whatever it was. And then they're looking at Coyote. Phoenix and Bob are kind of, again, they're pulled back a little bit, and Maverick's locked in because he notices Coyote's plane going rogue because he passed out from pulling up and trying to get over that mountain. That was, or the executing what would have been the mountain that they're going to have to do in that mission. And they save him, and you get a couple seconds there of
Damn birds.
take a breath, and then birds takes an engine out, and then you think that, oh shit, now it wasn't Coyote who we're going to lose here. We're going to lose Bob and Phoenix. And then they eject, and I don't know, that scene. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. Watching it for the first time, I legitimately thought that part was going to be where, because again, we talked about it already, but we'll get the next scene was when they start pulling him off assignment, I think, because of this. But you thought he was going to lose somebody else as a first time viewer, and that was just going to bring it all back. And I did actually believe somebody was going down there, and thankfully they didn't. But that scene was incredible, because it just, you had a second to breathe, and then you were right back into shit's hitting the fan. Another plane's going down.
Yep.
Trav, what was your favorite scene?
I can't go away from. I'm a sucker for the climax of movies. So them actually running the mission, and then the up and down of where are these people at? Okay, they're there. And then where's the next guy at? And then holy shit, he's getting shot at. And then then he finds him, and then he's got the up and down of a true climax scene from an action movie. I'm just a sucker for that.
Mine would have been when, right as they enter the mission, and do you see the SAM turrets? And then you see the missile bombardment go over their heads, and you're like, oh, we are in this shit now. And there's no going back, and, it kind of goes back to Brendan and his powerful scenes that he's been talking about, where this one for me was, oh, dude, like, you either succeed or you're dead. There is no, there is no gray area here. I'm going to pull off, my engine blows out. No, you have to be perfect from here on out. And that is what kind of spoke to me.
Yeah. Badass.
Well, I think kind of prior to that scene, because I know that scene's going to be quite the conversation. But prior to that, and you get through him getting taken off the mission, and then he executes it, and they're all watching him. And this goes back to the beginning of the movie when he's shooting him out of the sky and does an ego check. Well, they pull him off, and Cyclone's going to start teaching the class, and then all of a sudden, Maverick's out executing the plan. He does it with, I think, 0.16 seconds. Not that the time matters, but I think that number stuck in my head. Remaining, like, he did it. He showed him it could be done. He hadn't been practicing. He's been an enemy pilot, kind of giving that feel of the pressure when all of these Top Gun candidates were going through the motions and trying to do it. Nobody got it done. They have that crazy scene where somebody almost dies or multiple people almost die, and then you move into him doing it. And then it's like, I wrote down shove it, because it's like they're pulling you out. We're executing a miracle. This can't be done. He does it. He nails the target with the missiles. He pulls up. He gets over the mountain with time to spare and just proves to them it can be done. It's another ego check. It's another realization moment. And I think it gives them a lot of hope that, okay, this guy can do it. They didn't really think, and I think it goes back to needing the mindset that they have of being the best of the best. That it's not demoralizing, like, well, yeah, he can do it, but we can't. They all were like, no, this shit can be done. And they move into that, and then it gets to the point where he starts to pick his team for the mission, and it kind of silences a little bit. The music kind of slows down, and it brings you into who is going to be decided to take on this mission. And he picks Rooster for his wingman over Hangman, which I know we've talked about. And I think that goes back to the same point of he knew Hangman never got it. Like that light bulb never clicked. For if our lives are on the line, we're out here trying to execute this mission. Hangman's not somebody who's going to be looking out for the group. He's going to be looking out for himself. And he decides on Rooster, and he's got Payback, Bob, Fanboy, and Phoenix. We've got 4 jets. They execute it, and another kicker is that he was brought in to teach it, not to do it. And guess who's leading the charge? It's Maverick.
Yes, sir. He was so choked up too. He's like, holy shit! Like, he's actually calling me out.
Did you guys notice? And I had this question when I first watched it, so I guess it's more of a question for Brendan. Did you notice that Maverick and Rooster didn't have co-pilots?
Rooster. Yeah, no, they didn't.
So
their characters didn't need him. Those Dagger 1 and Dagger 2 didn't need him.
They were the ones. They were also the ones dropping the missiles, so they needed the recon from behind.
Exactly.
To get the laser in. I did notice that. I don't know.
So the second planes have the laser precision. So then they're the ones targeting, obviously, for the Dagger 1, Dagger 2. So then, Trav was correct. Yeah, they just don't need it. But watching it and not understanding how like that type of system works, most of the time I'm just like, why are they by themselves here? Why is it only them?
I didn't have that feeling of wondering why they're by themselves, because I think that was the point, was to find, like when he picked him to be the wingman. My initial thought, to touch on your question, was when he said Rooster's the wingman, I thought they would be in the same plane. Like just based on the word wingman, I thought, okay, then he's picking Rooster to be in his plane. When in reality, it was like me as Maverick and Rooster are the two that have to hit the target. And I think I wasn't, when they were flying and when the mission got engaged, I was not at all questioning why they didn't have somebody else in the plane, because of the recon and the comms they had from the plane on their tail. Because the plane on their tail was the one that was going to pinpoint with the lasers the target, let him know when he's ready to rip, and then fire the missiles. Like they're also the better pilots, so they're leading in front. They're keeping the pace. They're showing the route. So I didn't think anything of the fact that they didn't have anybody physically in their plane, because the plane or the jet behind them was the recon and had all the comms that they needed. So it kind of felt like it was a three-man, 3-woman plane, without them actually being physically in there. So no, I didn't really.
There was no reason for the airplane to have a second guy other than if they wanted to be the one shooting. But I mean, why risk another person in there when the guy flying the plane can target it and hit the button?
The quote, I know I love talking quotes. Another quote to interject here. Prior to actually taking off and starting the mission, was when him and Rooster were talking before getting in the jets. They started to kind of embrace. He thought that was kind of the makeup moment, and then the noise gets too loud, so they can't talk. And then he hits him with the "We'll talk when we get back." Awesome moment. I thought, again, he did not want to lose anybody else, especially Rooster.
Great point. But that what did I call it? I'll check my notes. I think it was the you guys keep talking, I'll try to find it. Well,
another point of that mission starting was launching the Tomahawks, I think they called them, the missiles that they sent out. Was that I couldn't tell, and maybe you guys had different thoughts on it. Was that a distraction, or was that not? Obviously, was a distraction from them being in the planes and taking the route, close to the ground to be able to get in and actually execute what they needed to get done. But did it also serve a purpose besides being a distraction? Did those Tomahawks actually hit something that did something productive, or was it specifically sent out just to be a distraction for them to execute the task at hand?
No, it hit the enemy airbase so that they couldn't launch planes to counterattack.
Okay.
So that was a big scene. When they're flying through the gully and those two bogies show up and they're like, where the hell did they come from? they were expecting all the planes to be grounded. And it even goes back to when they're running the training session, and Maverick shows up out of nowhere to like attack them to show that, yo, this might not always be the case where you have a nice clean run to do.
Exactly,
and then
2 minutes and 30
happens.
seconds too. Like the exact amount of time, the exact situation is never going to be the same. It's the same unorthodox preparation that I keep talking about.
And once the mission's going on, is kind of the wake up moment for Rooster too, because they're falling behind, and then the don't think do kind of clicks in his brain, and then he just takes off. Because Payback, I think, was the one behind him. Payback, and I believe it was Fanboy, because I think Phoenix and Bob are in a plane behind Maverick. So Payback and Fanboy are just trying to communicate the entire time, like, we are falling behind. We have 2.5 minutes, like you just said. You have got to get up there. And then it just clicks for him when they see the bandits as well, and they just take off. Was a come into moment for Rooster of his climax of, like, engaging in who Maverick always thought he could be, who Maverick didn't want him to be because he was scared of losing him as well as Goose. But it was the check-in moment for Rooster coming into his own and actually executing on what Maverick's been telling him to do the whole time. Don't think, just do.
Yeah, him talking to himself in the plane is pretty cool too, or kind of hyping him up like, "Come on, kid, you can do it." And then him talking to himself like, "Yeah, like it's time to grow up and send it."
And your life's on the line too. So I mean, I can't imagine you think about
adrenaline.
Well, yeah, I always talk about what better adrenaline rush than a UFC fight, walk into the octagon, and you're about to get locked in a cage and go one-on-one with a guy in front of millions of people, not meaning in the stadium, but also people watching on TV. How about 2.5 minutes to execute blowing up a uranium plant?
And technically people don't know you're there.
Completely off the grid.
Right.
And then 2 enemy planes show up, and you talk about adrenaline. My Lord. I can't imagine what's going through his head. And also on the goalie flight, this is not like a major talking point, but flying through the bridge. At that speed,
yes, sir.
dude.
I was just about to say
my God, dude. Cool scene, cool shot.
Calmly flipped, turned through it, and we're good to go.
That wasn't
you can't go over it because you'll get detected.
Yeah, and talk about, like, where the hell was that in practice, Mav? We're gonna have to.
I'm sure they all know how to do that shit. That's a showboat that they all can do, I bet. But under that pressure, like
in that moment, yeah.
Good point.
And I also like that they did, and I'm not a huge. I wouldn't say I'm not a huge advocate, but I'm not a huge fan of forcing. I would say maybe culture into a movie. Whether it's, race related or it's sex related or whatever it is. But I thought when it comes down to the military and one of the candidates being picked being a female, you also have folks of different color. Like, it gave you also that unity feeling of, like, we have a mission at hand and I'm picking the best of the best. And, like, all the people that, talk about some of those things and kind of blow them up bigger than they are. It's like our lives are on the line. And I did enjoy the fact that, Phoenix being chosen to be one of the recon, and her and Bob in that plane. I noticed that for whatever reason, because I'm not usually somebody that is like, when I see some of those things, I almost feel like it's forced. But I did notice that, and I thought it was a cool part of the movie too, of just showing the unity within what we need to get done and who's the best person to do it. You know what I mean?
Skills, like, if you're skilled, you should be the one chosen. And then going back to Hangman's character of still sticking it out and not letting go of his comments about her being a chick countless times in the movie, and probably one of the other reasons that he wasn't chosen. But at the end of the day, when he probably got the message not being chosen, that was probably the humbling moment. And then later on coming in and being the saving grace, I think he kind of got the message that, yeah, I'm not out of this thing, like, I'm still very good, but I gotta kind of check my values.
He was that typical, man's man of, like, it's got to be a man to do all this stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, like, no, dude. One, you're not even coming. Like you're
Right.
the rescue team. And it's a man's job. Like all that shit is for the birds. Like I need the people who can get the job done, and he chose accordingly.
Right.
And then they get into miracle number one, and I thought that was cool when John Hamm's character Cyclone, because Bob locks in, they drop the missiles, bang, Maverick smokes it, and miracle number one, check. And then the second group with Rooster, Payback, and Fanboy, laser malfunction. And to use a gaming terminology, how about the no scope from Rooster to drop that thing right on in there?
Yes, sir.
That plane scene where they flip over to they invert at the peak of that
First
mountain
peak,
to go.
right?
Yeah, that first peak is just so mesmerizing because you're like, oh shit, man, like they're going, and then to execute that, and then I get flipped back around and then shoot something while you're waiting for the guy behind you to have his you're waiting on the laser, and then just the balls say fuck that technology, I'm doing it myself.
He wouldn't have had the time too. Like him flipping that switch in the valley of saying like, okay, it's time to go. I think helped him make that decision of, you know what, this thing's not working. I'm going to trust my abilities and just fire that thing in there.
And he nailed it. And you get a
nailed
chance to hear miracle number two, check. And then that scene was unbelievable. I know you talked about it probably being your favorite scene. I think probably most people that watch this movie, it is going to be number one. It was long. And the whole time, again, it goes back to the edge of my seat I was on the edge of my seat in practice when I thought people were going down, and now we're in the real deal. And as soon as they pull up and they hit that peak too, because they have to climb to get over, and then the SAM turrets can obviously recognize them and find them, and they split their paths. They pop the flares to get the missiles gone. You're on the edge of your seat. They had to have been at least 15 minutes, maybe 20. I don't know, but the entire time there was no lull in that moment, because I think obviously they were on that time crunch, and the movie elongates to 2.5 minutes. I know we talked about that with the ticking time bomb last week. So like the 2.5 minutes felt like forever, but they didn't miss on any of that stuff. They pull up, and then the SAM turrets launch, and then they do fine in terms of the first two, Maverick and the other plane behind him. And then of course you have some issues with the plane behind them, because the laser was kind of a telltale sign or foreshadowing of this isn't over for this group. There's the laser's gone. We no scope the drop. Rooster hits it. We think everything's, daisies and flowers and all that good stuff. They pull up, SAM turrets go, and then he runs out of flares. So like that scene just continued every time. Again, every time you thought you could take a breath, you couldn't.
Outside of that ending scene, my criticism for the film, it kind of begins here, where we have this huge dogfight scene. We have the SAM turrets. You're losing your flares, and then Maverick goes down after saving Rooster. And I don't know at what point do you cut it to not add that, but the whole Maverick goes down, and he's got this helicopter chasing him, and then there's Rooster, and then Rooster goes down. It's just like for me, the only thing I thought of during that whole scene was Behind Enemy Lines, which it just seemed like a complete rip from that movie. Where
by the way.
Amazing movie, but in terms of this, you have so much going on, and then you break that up to do it all over again. That ending sequence for me is where I think the film stumbled, but I enjoyed it all the same. It's just like, come on, you have the Black Hawk helicopter staring you down. You're running out. You're outrunning bullets, and it seemed unnecessary with everything else we had in the film.
I think that maybe stems from seeing it. Now, I will agree with you that the Black Hawk helicopter is shooting at him. Whether he was outrunning the bullets or not, or let's just say that he was jumping over that fallen tree or whatever it was when the chopper started shooting. I do agree that tree on the ground is probably not eating that many bullets to save you. It's probably getting right through it to kill him. But again, I was on the edge of my seat. I did think at some point within that whole scene, from start to finish, and it goes back to the practice scene when I thought somebody was going down. I thought somebody was going to die in this movie. I really did, and I thought, Rooster wanted to go back. They showed it so many times of we can't go back. He thought about going back. We can't go back. They showed it again. They showed it again. So I really thought for a second, as a first time viewer of the movie, no one was coming back for a second. Now, granted, you get to a point where obviously they show the shot of the chopper turning to him, and you could feel like something's got to happen here. And Rooster coming back and saving him was an awesome moment. Probably one of the cooler moments in the movie. Because you think Maverick might be dead. He's alive. You find that out. The Black Hawk chopper starts to hunt him down. He gets away from it. Rooster gets him, and then Rooster's plane goes down, or his jet goes down, and Maverick takes off running to go find him. I will say this: they were in the woods. I don't think location would have been overly easy to find them, but obviously they did. And then when he just this is another point of this movie I liked, was that I was on the edge of my seat. I am an emotional person. I was getting a little teary-eyed from time to time of thinking someone was going to die. When Maverick saved Rooster, I was like, the tears start to come on a little bit. You kind of level itself out. Then you think Maverick's going to die from this Black Hawk. And then here comes Rooster, shoots down the Black Hawk chopper. And then he goes and finds them. And like that whole time, like I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm leaning up. I've had tears start to come out. Like not actually crying, but like, you start to feel that emotion build up of like someone's going to die here. And then when he meets up with him in the woods and pushes him to the ground, like pissed off.
You're expecting like a hug or something.
Yeah, the comedic relief that they built in, I think, does a really good job because I was so tied into that scene was so good that I was like just linked to it. And then the comedic relief that they continued to pour in throughout that scene kind of let you relax a little bit. And he
told me not to think.
You told me not to think. Another quote. You told me not to think. That's funny, and that it allows you to pull back a little bit, and then it continued to go on for them to be able to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying when I was first mentioning like this being my favorite scene, the fact that it keeps like one thing after the next going up, down, up, down, up, down for somebody watching it for the first time, and even me watching it the second time, like super cool to go from scene to scene where you still don't know what's going to happen next, but it's semi-predictable, also not predictable at the same time.
Yeah, I think there was some predictability in there. And then again, when the escape of kind of just walking into and jogging up to that what Miles Teller or AKA Rooster called a bag of ass. I don't know if you guys caught that quote.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna fly this bag of ass. Good quote.
But think about the chaos. Think about the chaos on that airstrip. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if you're able to just walk right through there. But then again, to be able to fully boot it up and get out of there, I don't know.
The fully booted up and get it out of there, but also they weren't unnoticed. Like they didn't actually finish that whole scene without them being unnoticed. So I did like that because they did end up getting hawked by, I think it ended up being 3 total jets, maybe 4. But when they were up in the sky and he's like just smiling wave, that was pretty, like they literally did that to get to the plane, would just blend in because it is chaos. They just had 2 bombs dropped on a uranium plant in order to blow up the whole operation. So getting to the plane, I didn't think that was as unrealistic as in the moment I did. I go, sure. But yeah, I mean, no, that there's total chaos going on. To then take off, you think about the predictability, the unrealistic part of it, but then they are noticed. They do get tracked. I thought they blended that very well with a pretty tough to make it seem realistic moment. They did bring it back to reality a little bit because they didn't get out of there unscathed. They had 2 planes on their ass.
I think they did a really good job with showing the difference between the F-14 and even the current gen that they were running on the mission. The difference between those and the 5th gen fighter that they're fighting against, the fact that it could just stop, flip, and turn around. You know what I mean? He was like, holy shit. When it just, they were flying side by side and he just stopped, flipped, turned right back around and got on his ass. Like that's what they were talking about. That's the issue with this mission going through is these things are legit. They'll kill you, and they're much better than what your plane is. But then again, on the flip side, when you got Tom Cruise, Maverick, running in a bag of ass, and he's able to take them all down. Sure, it's unorthodox, but yeah, I mean, it really is the pilot and not the plane.
That was another point of the bringing back the quotes that have just stuck through was not only don't think, just do, but it's not the plane, it's the pilot when Rooster tells that to Maverick. Because he's like, he wants him to eject. I'm going to tell you when to eject and you take off. And then not only it's not the plane, it's the pilot, but the dogfight mentality that they've been instilling in these people the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, this is a dogfight. And then
Did it hit you too? Like when he does try to, when Maverick's telling him, "Hey, like pull the chute, pull it," and he can't. I immediately thought of the first movie. I was like, oh shit, here we go.
I remember
The first
watching
time
it
I
the
watched
first
it, yeah.
time. I remember watching it the first time, like, oh, bro, no.
Right.
And expecting not necessarily the same thing to happen, but the moment he couldn't pull it, I was like, Maverick has to die coming up. Just to,
Right.
whether it's saving Rooster or in some way, I was just like, that is just disaster for one of those guys. And it has to be Maverick.
Yep.
yeah, I did think that entire time somebody had to die. So they got me there because they definitely got out. And the one thing I will say about that scene at the end, not even just at the end, because I know then that's when it happened, but the whole time I knew Hangman is going to show up. Like at some point within the scene, even as the first time watching, I knew Hangman was going to show up. And he did in the biggest way when they got the last fighter jet coming after him, where they didn't notice they're out of bullets, they're out of missiles.
Dead. They're dead.
They're done.
know?
It's over. And then here comes
Talk about
Hangman.
immediate comedic relief. I mean, he's instantly talking like they're on a roller coaster ride, telling them to keep their hands and feet inside the vehicle.
Yeah, his character was a douche, but he did such a good job of playing that role.
And for being such a static character too, because we're shown so many times that he's not going to change. But when you need that type of guy out there with you, he shows up.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to have those kind of mentalities, and I think they all do, or they all did. But his was the one that stood out as the most. Of like, in the clutch, I want the ball, and that was the moment where you needed that guy on the roster somewhere.
I love
You found out why.
I love his one-liner. Oh, I'm good. I'm very good.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember if they did anything in the movie to show him like taking off at the end. I'm sure with him with Rooster's little beacon showing up on the radar, they may have said, "Hey, like let's get a plane out there just to make sure that they get home." But they didn't. I don't think they showed that on the movie. Obviously, for that reason. Like if they would have shown Hangman hopping off the hangar, going out there and protecting, then we would have known that. But super cool scene, the fact that he comes out and saves the day.
I think he was in a like chopper, sitting kind of on. Maybe it wasn't a chopper; it could have been a jet. But
he was in his jet.
Yeah, they showed him multiple times of like he wanted to get in the mix, or like he was kind of that oh shit button. And they showed him, but they didn't show him taking off.
Yeah, I'm sure it's for that reason though in the movie.
Yeah, and then when they get on the hangar and all of those relationships, and how could you not? I mean, all of those relationships, all the beef being squashed, they didn't lose a sense of who they were. I think Hangman was still that prick, but they shaking hands with Rooster and Maverick obviously crushing their beef. How could you not? I mean, when you go through something like that, you execute it, you get it done, you all get home safe. The ending, the way that they wrap that up and crushing or squashing all that beef, it just, how could you not?
Right. Very cool.
I like how they always take their helmets off and it's perfect hair. I know it's always in movies and everything, but I always notice it. And it's so funny that apparently it doesn't affect Tom Cruise because he's more into like that realism. But anytime like Rooster or Hangman take their helmet off, like their hair is just perfectly suave.
Yeah, Tom Cruise's hairstyle is definitely more of just like a so be it in a good way. Like he doesn't have to do a whole lot to his hair to make it look good. So his does look like he's coming out of a helmet, but the other two absolutely is like gel still good. You know, the slick back of Miles Teller, like none. Like I guess
That's how sweaty you'd be.
Well, and I thought that was what I was gonna say is like they were sweating. Like maybe they weren't actually, but they did show that they were sweating in terms of like. I mean, Tom Cruise was covered in sweat. He was drenched.
Yeah.
Now his hair wasn't soaking wet, but they were sweating.
Yeah,
And then
overall,
and then they wrap it up with just a Gaga. I immediately she starts singing, and I knew it was Gaga. Great tune. The soundtrack was incredible. You said it multiple times, but the soundtrack was incredible. The music that they put into this movie everywhere, but the Gaga to wrap it up was awesome. The ending was great. I honestly like. I know we talk about hey we are towards the back end here, but like overall critiques, some predictability. Like for a movie I've never seen, I think it's easier to maybe notice something that is a critique. There was some predictability at the end, but like I don't necessarily have any absolute critiques. Now I think you guys have a different perspective, having it being a sequel, and maybe what you could tie to the first movie. But I didn't like outside of like every movie's going to have some kind of predictability, but I didn't think anything stood out to me as like this was not good.
For being a rehash essentially of the first film with different same type of characters and kind of different roles, I think it did a really good job. From a perspective of not seeing the first one and this being a first viewing, I think you're going to watch this movie and come away satisfied. But at the end of the day, is it really acting when you're doing all these stunts? All these actors are in the planes. They're getting filmed while flying. Tom Cruise does his own stunts. At what point, and it's not really a criticism, just more of a question, but like at what point is doing it versus acting? Like at what point does that, like, who cares?
I don't know. I think at the end of the day, you'd figure out like how truly tough it is to say your lines, be in the plane, do the action, like spin around, hit the buttons, all that shit once you're actually doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it just goes to show that them actually doing it and it not really being acting puts me more into the movie of like my previous critiques where like that realism. I'm watching this, it's set in real life, and then these guys are actually doing it, and I feel like it just immerses you into that film. And as far as critiques go, I have minimal, so I think that helps, but it's very niche to the type of movie you're watching.
I like to play dumb with these super cool action movies where it's just badass fighter jets, or even if it's like any other war movie where it's just shooting and high action, high output scenes. I don't really like to look for that type of stuff, so I don't really have anything. But at the end of the day, I mean, whoever watches this movie is going to enjoy it. It doesn't matter if you're into, ego checking in the military or whatever. Like you're going to enjoy pieces of this film because there's a little bit of romance between him and Penny. There's a little, feels for Iceman and going back into his character, and he's sick and he is in real life, and maybe people don't know that, but they kind of touch on everything, and the aspect of real life lessons of just going out there and doing your thing and not trusting doing everything by the book, I think was super cool. And not everybody might not see that, but it's just a point that I kind of took away from it.
Well, let's not forget that we're also pulling from movies that have been rated in the top 100 of all time. Like
True.
So
True.
when it comes to critiques, and I've said this before, I'm probably not as big of a stickler for some of the small things as like Geese, obviously, for sure. But just I am the type of person that will just buy into a movie. I can definitely pull back and notice things that are unrealistic or predictability and some of those things, but I do definitely just dive in. But we're also watching movies that are known as or have been rated as from quote unquote professionals, whatever that means, as one of the best movies of all time. So to not have critiques, it's you want to try to find one, but it's not shocking that we don't have any sort of outlandish like critiques of a movie that is, it is a top 100 movie of all time. In terms of just the overall cast, I don't think there was anything for me that stood out as like, oh, who could have played this? This person didn't really carry their weight. Going back to the beginning of our talk, Tom Cruise. I mean, he's so good, dude. Like I love Miles Teller. Miles Teller, I think, is extremely versatile. We talked about a niche character that Tom Cruise can kind of play. Miles Teller's still obviously young, but the amount of shit he's been in already, comedies, just overall, like the adaptability and the versatility of him as an actor is unreal. But I do think Tom Cruise, rightfully so, he is the main character for a reason. He was years ago, and here he is again. So obviously he's, to me, did an incredible job. But in terms of just Miles Teller, love that guy. Think he's very, very good, and we'll continue to see movies with him in it as we continue to kind of roll through this podcast. But Tom Cruise did an unbelievable job.
I think I would give. You obviously got to give Tom Cruise the 10 out of 10. Like he's perfect throughout the movie. I didn't have anything to criticize him, but as far as the movie goes, like he's the main character, so everything's got him involved. Like every scene's got him in there and whatever. But when you put a movie like this together, I think when a good director does it, you solo out all these different other, whether it comes to Hangman or Rooster or Phoenix or whatever, they have their own little parts and scenes where like they're the shot of the scene. It may not be a long part of the scene, but when they're just the shot and you get the feel of the character, I think every single one of those people, including John Hamm being kind of like he wasn't really a villain of the movie, but when he's the
heel
guy of the mission, the heel of the movie, like he plays it very well.
Trav, what did this get on Rotten Tomatoes?
Glad you asked. I want you guys to guess before I tell you.
Rotten Tomatoes.
There's a critique score and an audience score.
So the critique score, let's give it an 8 and the audience a 9.
You got to go at 100%.
90% and 80%.
Brandon,
I think this movie had to be close to 100 critically. It had to be.
So
yeah,
you're right on it. And Geese, I can see where you're kind of on a little bit of the lower end. It was 96 and 99.
99
audience
surprising.
Perspective, I would have said 100, but
I have seen movies with hundreds, and I would have given it 100.
Yeah, this movie was awesome, dude. I know I started off by saying that, but this movie was fucking awesome. I don't know what else to say, but I thought it was awesome. Literally awesome.
I'm glad that you hadn't watched, like, as much as I think it would have been cool if you would have watched the first one and then watched this to get a little bit more of a feel. I'm glad you didn't, because we got, Geese and I got that fresh perspective of, you watching it for the first time and your raw emotion. Every time you watch a movie for the second time, a little piece of that goes away. Like, you still feel the same way, but it's not the same.
I feel like you get more critical of it, though, where
True.
You've seen it, so you're paying attention to other things that you missed the first time.
Right.
Yeah, I think we've kind of had the full gamut within the last 3 weeks of never seen a movie altogether. We had all seen last week's movie, and then you guys have seen not only this movie but the prior movie, and I hadn't seen any of it. I mean, I knew what it was, but I really didn't have any idea what it was about. I mean, even the Top Gun part of it, like, I didn't know that was even a real thing. So looking that up immediately to kind of see if it was real, if that was part of the fictional story, or if the Top Gun was a real like class or a group, I guess, of upcoming Navy pilots. So yeah, I mean, I do think that from watching the movie the second time, you can still get, depending on when the last time you watched it, how many times have you seen it, there's always going to be a different nuance to it, but I think there's nothing better than watching a movie for the first time.
Yeah, I agree. Do you guys want some fun facts?
Let me hear it.
So one of the coolest ones, I'm a big Formula One fan, and the Formula One season's just starting up. First race is today, actually. And I think I heard this when I first saw the movie coming out, and I was just getting into Formula One with my buddy John. And I saw on the fun facts I was looking at that Lewis Hamilton was going to be possibly cast into this. He was going to be into the fighter pilot role. Pretty sick. He's like one of the best, if not the best, Formula One driver. And if he was going to be cast as a fighter pilot, I would have been all over it.
That would have been really cool.
It would have been sick. They would have had to pay him way too much, though. Those guys get paid enough already. I mean, I think his contract with Ferrari, he's getting paid like $50 million a year. So I don't know if he's going to get that money for doing that film.
I also asked my cousin who's a pilot if, I was like, have you seen the, Top Gun Maverick? He's like, yeah. I was like, obviously. But I was like, I wanted to get your input as being an actual pilot. And his response was basically, he's like, yeah, I'm not a military pilot. They live in their own world. And I think we've kind of touched on that, and we see that through the film. But that a lot of the flying stuff is pretty factual. And the one thing he did note was that plane in the beginning doesn't exist. But he says that there are rumors that it does, and that Lockheed Martin is fucking with us. So
I like that bit of curiosity.
There's plenty of stuff that they're doing that we won't know about. You know what I mean? I mean, rightfully so. We shouldn't. But overall,
this movie did huge.
Overall, final thoughts. One word to describe such an incredible movie. Geese, I'll start with you.
Dangerous. Which, Brendan, you won't know this, but that is a quote from Maverick in the first film. And I've said it a couple times throughout the podcast, just, trying to be funny, but it is. I mean, this whole film is danger. You only get one shot up there, man, and anything could absolutely go wrong, and you have to be perfect.
Yeah, and you're on the highway to the danger zone.
Highway to the danger zone.
Highway? Dude, is it highway? So, hold on.
Yeah, it's highway.
Dude,
it's highway to the danger zone.
My entire life, I thought it was I went. I thought it was I went to the danger zone. The entire Sing it the same way. It sounds the same. I went to the danger zone. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I'm with you. I
didn't know that. I didn't know that. You said that earlier, and I thought you fucked up, but I'm the idiot.
But then again, you also haven't seen the movies.
Yeah, I know, but I've heard that song 1,000 times. Or did they change the song for the movie, or is it actually?
No.
Wow.
He made the song for the movie.
That song originally came out for Top Gun OG.
Yeah. And I'm going to shout out Kenny Loggins.
Have to.
Rock legend. I mean, if you're not listening to Kenny Loggins, what are you doing?
Wow. I did not know
They're not listening to us.
Guys, I didn't know that.
Good point.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
It happens.
Tell me I went to the danger zone doesn't flow the exact same way as highway.
I went to the danger zone.
I hear it, but I can never not hear highway.
And I would go again. I'd do it again. I'd go back. Wow. Trav. One word.
I'll try to jump in front of you and try to tie back to when I first watched it. And I'm glad all your points came out for watching it the first time, and I'm going to say emotional.
Dude.
Because the ups and downs of a movie like this, yes, it's action, but holy shit, like, you don't know what's going to happen next when you get into the practice scenes or the actual, finale of the climax of going back and forth of, are you going to make the miracle? Is he going to go fast enough? Are they going to get away from the SAM missiles? Is somebody going to show up to save them after they walked through a war zone to get to the old shitty jet? Is that thing going to work? Oh, okay, they get into the sky. Boom, they got to run into 3 jets. They got to take it. You know what I mean? The whole thing, you're on the edge of your seat, like you're saying. You keep crawling forward, like, okay, what's next? Who's going to die? So that would probably be my word for it.
My word was emotional, and I have to think of another one because you took it, but spot on. Mine, I guess, to not say the exact same thing would be connection, because we get connected to movies. We already talked about the first time you watch a movie, there's nothing better. But to tie in your emotional point, like connection, right? Like it was a movie, it is a fictional story, but they showed you the real life aspect of what these people do. They show you what their lives are like outside of putting their lives on the line. They are, again, I said it earlier, but they are just like all of us, right? In terms of let's go out and have some beers. And then tomorrow, let's fly fighter jets through a goalie to drop bombs on a nuclear power plant or a potential nuclear threat, where we don't know if we're getting out. We don't know if tomorrow's never promised for anybody, but especially not for people that do what they do. So not only were we connected from a standpoint of what a good movie this is, and like it brings you to the edge of your seat, like you just said, but it gave you the connection to our actual friends and family and folks that are enlisted in the military of like, this is insane. And continue to can't speak volumes loudly enough about just the feeling behind and how grateful we can be that these people exist. This movie did an incredible job of pulling you in. You felt connected to the characters. You felt connected to the story. And you think about the fact that that shit happens. Like those things happen without us knowing. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. The time that goes into it. But the connection I felt to this movie was bar none. Unbelievable.
I think they did a really good job of keeping it patriotic, like it's still our military, the U.S. military, but they didn't include exactly who the enemy was. I think that was smart of them to do, and you know what I mean. Like, we didn't really need to guess or figure out who it was. It's just the enemy. Glad they did.
And that goes back to when they introduced Maverick to all the pilots, and he's standing in front of the American flag, and the one thing that came through my mind is General Patton. It's just that iconic picture, and they replicate it with Maverick in front.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
I think to that point too is we do get a lot of war movies that are based on true stories. So there is an enemy, there is a story, there is something that physically or actually happened that it's based off of, where we do know who we're going after, whether we use the right names or we use the right terminology. Like there is a target. So staying away from that is smart, because we're just
financially, if you're going to sell it globally.
Yep. Yeah, true. That's another point. But no, I do agree with that as well. Well, guys, any final thoughts besides the words? I mean, anything else that we didn't touch on that you thought would be worth mentioning? Or I think we did a pretty good job of covering that.
Yeah, I hope we do end up watching the first one, eventually down the line, and get your thoughts on that. And I always love watching that movie.
One thing I will say that we didn't really touch on is all the classic vehicles that were shown. There was a lot of talk about, that's, 5th generation fighters. And then we get Maverick's bike. We get the high-tech plane in the very beginning. We get the 5th generation fighters. We get the ancient, F-14s.
World War II plane that he's working on, too.
Yep, the World War II
I don't know
plane.
if it's World War II, but
yeah, it's the old one. And then at the very end is just that Porsche just shining.
I did note that. It's just tiny too, but that is a classic.
It pisses me off looking at how cool that car looked. And there's no way I'd ever fit in that.
No. And Miles Teller, Eagles fan.
He is an Eagles fan, and
I
another
heard.
Miles Teller thing that I haven't touched on is he is rumored to want to do another one. I don't know if you call it Top Gun Rooster. I don't think I'd I don't think I'd name it that, but if you do like Top Gun Commander, where Tom Cruise is still doing it, but he takes over Iceman's role, and he gives Rooster the reins, maybe.
Do you think
Maybe we
that
get
if
something out
Tom
of that?
Cruise, do you think if Tom Cruise isn't in the movie, they have to take the word Top Gun out of it?
No, I think he'd probably keep Top Gun.
And
But I bet
I
you
don't
like
mean that. I don't mean that in terms of like have to take it out, but in thoughts of like if we're gonna do another story here. I mean, I guess Top Gun's a real thing, like we've talked about, but I just thought maybe if we're gonna pass the torch to Miles Teller to carry on this franchise, not that it's a franchise either, but if we're gonna turn it into one, would you change? I guess you can, there's no way you can take Top Gun out, right?
No, it's got to be Top Gun. It's what they are. You know what I mean?
I know that's kind of what I thought of when I was talking. Is it literally? I mean, it is Top Gun.
I'd be game for it. It'd be a very expensive movie. I think if they're going to end up doing it, they're going to give it time, let people rest and kind of digest this one, and then, you always got to do the somebody's got the script or we found the director and we're shooting it this time or whatever. So I think
Can you have
I
a
bet you
Tom
they
Cruise?
will with how
Can you
with how
have
much that
a
movie made.
Can you have a Top Gun movie and not put Tom Cruise in an airplane?
No,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can.
I don't think it would do as well. I think you have to.
I
think you have
agree.
to fly.
He's got to be in a plane at some point.
Yeah.
I think it could easily be a situation where maybe he's not in the movie, but he does have he could turn into that cameo. You know what I mean? You pay homage to the guy who set the tone for Top Gun. So like if they do a whole movie without him being an integral part to it, but then he does show up, I think you could get away with that.
A good plot potentially would be, like I was saying earlier, where he takes over Iceman's role. Like, boom, there's a promotion he wanted. He's teaching all these people how to be professional with and risk takers and yada yada. And then you have Miles Teller as the captain, and you got Hangman there. You got all the same crew. I think you could pull it off with pulling the same crew this way. But then like a new enemy, new whatever. I mean, that's just how they recycle these movies. But I'd watch the hell out of a Top Gun movie. It doesn't matter the plot.
Yeah, I couldn't be more all in after watching that.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you liked it. I'm sure you were. I was pretty positive you're gonna like it, but it's good to hear that you liked it.
Yeah, overall, incredible movie, incredible conversation, guys. I thought that. I don't know. I mean, we'll top it, but that movie so far for me is just it's. When I finished watching it, it was just one of those moments of like, have I seen a better movie than this? And I'm sure I have. Maybe that movie was unbelievable, but awesome chat, guys. Everybody out there listening to this, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Next week, we're going to be jumping backwards in time again, going back to 1962 to watch To Kill a Mockingbird, which is categorized in crime, which kind of surprised me. I know we've had this running list for a while and continuing to add movies that have been rated within a top 100 at some point on the IMDb top 100 list. But To Kill a Mockingbird, for us, I personally, again, haven't seen it, haven't read the book, but a lot of folks in our age group, and maybe still to this day, I don't know, but read that in school. So kind of taking it back, obviously taking it back about 60 years into the past to watch Kill a Mockingbird. So watch it with us. Let us know what you think. Tune in and have your own thoughts ready to roll. But as we mentioned earlier, too, we're going to start going out to movie theaters, guys. We are three dudes that grew up in a time we're going to the movie theaters with your family, taking a girl on a first date, taking a guy on a first date. We don't judge. Get out to the movie theaters, go watch a movie, see what's coming next. We're going to start to incorporate going to the theaters at least once a month, give you guys a little preview of something that's new and bringing back movie culture. There's not a better experience to watch a movie than actually going out and physically doing it. Treat yourself. Go by yourself. It doesn't matter. But go watch a movie, guys. We're going to get back into the theaters and start to get going on that coming up next month. So something to look out for, and we'll let you know what you're watching. But when you guys watch that next movie and you grab that popcorn out of the cabinet, right, and you put that thing in the microwave and you hear it popping, or maybe you grab it from the cashier and you get the bucket from over the counter, don't forget your extra butter.
on the corner for me. Extra butter. I hope they don't charge a fee. But it won't matter anyway. I got a good movie to play. I'm gonna ask my friends to stay extra butter for me.